Okay, guys, so you're seeing how sensitive our environment is on a very weak and mutated population. Because now you're seeing what they say is the end times. And what is the end times? It's meaning that humanity is now at a tipping point to where they either have to put up or shut up. They either have to go this direction or that direction. Okay? So right now we figured out that cancer is actually viruses that are programming your body, exploiting the weaknesses in your body. Okay? Viruses out of control is cancer. Okay? And how that is manifested is the imbalances in your candida, as well as in, which is your yeast, and of course, hormonal imbalances, but those are based upon the viruses reprogramming your body to go on a specific death trajectory. Okay, because you have a weak body, you haven't strengthened your body, you now have a candida imbalance. So what creates a candida imbalance? When you have a sugar imbalance. And it doesn't matter what kind of sugar. It could be a fruit sugar, it could be organic sugar, it could be stevia, it could be aspartame, it could be any sugar, coconut sugar, it could be carbohydrates converted into sugar. Okay, and so there are people on my Facebook who are only promoting vegan, vegetarian, and fruit only on a diet. They're not even mentioning J juice at all. Not at all. And so what they're doing is they are already imbalanced, already have a yeast imbalance, a candida imbalance, because you see it in all of their activist posts. They're already dealing with cancer disease and chronic illness. They're working out on a continuous basis, trying to detox. And they're only doing pretty much fruit. Maybe they're doing J juice here and there a little bit, but they're not really talking about it. They're still propagating the fear campaigns and then talking about how they're only on a fruit diet. It's all about fruit, 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 maybe some vegetables too. Well, what that does is feeding the cancer candida, well, feeding the candida, and then it fosters the environment for cancer. And I know, and the reason why I'm responding to you, Marilu, because of your emoji, which is you're like, and you're like you're not really sure what to believe, you're on the fence, you're still figuring stuff out. And I want to make sure to put that to rest for you. I mean, either way, you're going to believe what you're going to believe. And I know you said it makes sense, and that's good. Okay? But what happens is that when you only promote fruits and veggies and, and a vegan and vegetarian organic diet, no vaccines, doing all these detoxes, you are creating an environment for cancer to propagate. You are creating an environment for those virus programming to exploit a weak body. There is a way to have these virus programming exploit, not really exploit, but strengthen a strong body. But we haven't gotten there yet because we still have people still afraid of the world that they live in. And, there are people that have been on my Facebook for a while, like you, Mai Huang Nguyen. You've been on my Facebook for a while, Mai Huang. I know you're still in the anti-vax world. I know you're still probably in the holistic world. You've watched a lot of my videos, and I see you watching me now. What would it take for me to get through your head and all of your people who are influenced by the same stuff to figure out that J juice is the actual factor in changing the biochemistry to where we don't have cancer, disease, chronic illness, and aging, and then death? What would it take for me to convince you, Mai Huang? Or is it the fact that it's not really for me to convince you, obviously, that you have to actually have some kind of event in your life to where either you're going to buy going down the death trajectory and fall into the whole detoxing cannabis and all of the, the holistic remedies, or you're going to say that maybe pain is actually healing. Maybe there's something to what Jillian is saying. Because I have a lot of people that lurk on my Facebook, and I see them come through. They don't say too much, and they're still propagating the fear campaigns. But what exactly are you getting from my transmissions? Why doesn't it land in your world? Now, what am I not saying or saying that you don't get? So that's kind of the challenges that I have. That I see people that are on this Facebook, and I know it's not me. I know it really is them and their biochemistry and their choices. But I want to let you know that I know what I know who my audience is. I know who's taking this on, and I know who's just kind of taking me for entertainment. Because Mai Huang, you are an influence. And I know I'm picking on you, but I see you all the time. We share a middle name. You have a first name. But you are an influence in your community. You could change so many lives, Mai Huang Nguyen. But why don't you? And this is, where I have conflict, is that people that I know that really mean well for their community and mean well for themselves, but they really just don't get this. And I know that I can't control that because it really is them. But I really, really, truly want to find a way to reach even those that are so difficult. And yeah, you're right, Karen. Once you get past the fear, and once you understand how the elements work, understand how the body works, what actually a cancer is, what virus is, the role of viruses, then you realize that there is something to J-juice, but you have to actually take the time. And if you've been watching my videos for a long time, I'm sure something got through. I'm sure I penetrated something, okay? And so, and I try to get this through Scott Donato, who's out of the chemtrails crowd. He's a great guy. Why is he a great guy? Because I know he means well, but he's still stuck in the fruit propagation. He does take on J-juice here and there, but he's still afraid of the chemtrails. When you're so afraid of the vaccine, so afraid of the chemtrails, so afraid of 5G, so afraid of everything, it's showing you have imbalances. And I know that, when I say that, when I put some of these articles out there that talk about how fruit does, well, in some of these articles of CNN, they say fruit causes cancer. It really isn't true. It's that fruit will then create the environment for cancer because you're feeding a yeast that lowers your immune system so you don't have your defenses up, and then the viruses take over. And that's what cancer is. But they're not going to say that in CNN because that's way too complicated. It's easier to say that fruit causes cancer, fruit juices causes cancer, than really go into why it creates an environment for cancer, because there's no viruses in fruit. Fruit in of itself on a strong body has great, amazing benefits. But fruit on a weak body with sugar imbalance and candida imbalances, it's totally detrimental. Just like, vaccines on a very weak body is detrimental. But if you can't handle the vaccines, you can't adapt and assimilate to your environment. You're already, way behind the 8 ball. You're already a sitting duck. It's not going to matter whether you get a vaccine or not. You're already a sitting duck. So this is what I want Mai Huang Nguyen to understand this, because I know that she's anti-vax. If you can't handle the vaccines, you can't handle the environment. You're on a death trajectory. You're still propagating the vegan, vegetarian, all fruit diet, not even promoting J-juice. You're laying the groundwork for your friends to go down that death trajectory, and probably even faster, because these viruses are even more pronounced, more mutated, and stronger than ever. So you're not really helping matters. But I know that's not your intention. But then, hey, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. Your activism is good. It has good intentions, but it's the road to hell. So I have this 4 quadrants of strong mutations versus strong or adaptation, like the 4 quadrants of adaptation and mutations. Another 4 quadrant. Okay. So quadrant 1, you have weak adaptation and weak mutations. It's a negative, because now you can't really these are people who are anti-vax, afraid of the world. So they have a weak mutations and weak adaptation. They're basically like a sitting duck. Death may actually be right off the bat. That's why there's SIDS, because there's babies that are born so mutated that they can't even adapt to the crazy pathogenic world that we live in, and maybe they have weak mutations, but they can't adapt. So if you have weak mutations and you have a weak adaptation, you're looking at death, cancer, disease, chronic illness, aging, and death. It's just relative where you are on the spectrum as far as life. Okay? So, and then quadrant number 2, you have a weak mutation, but a strong adaptation. Well, you're in basically an environment that's pretty level, not too much homeostasis interruptions. Maybe you're in Hawaii. and there really isn't huge industry, there's no hurricanes, and it's just 80 degrees every single day with a nice, beautiful trade wind breeze, okay? So you're adapting well, and there's no major upset of homeostasis. That's positive. It's like those natives in the middle of the island in the Atlantic. Just don't be visiting them and proselytizing your religion on them and then giving them all your viruses, because you'll decimate them, okay? So those are people in a bubble. Anyone that's in a bubble has weak mutations and a strong adaptation. They're able to adapt for a certain amount of time, but then they do die. Okay, but that's kind of like what this model is somebody in a bubble, like the natives in an island, away from upset of homeostasis, away from pathogenic people, and then a chaotic atmosphere. Okay, then you have a strong adaptation and strong mutations. This is where we're ultimately wanting to be with the J juice. Strong adaptation, strong mutations. It is a positive. You're adapting well to the changing environment. So those of you who are not afraid of 5G chemtrails, GMO, and vaccines, and you're able to understand why they exist, and you're not propagating fear and conspiracy and all that bullshit, you're adapting well to the changing environment. This is the ultimate of where we want to be. This is what I'm shooting for myself as well as all of you. And you're all at different levels of healing. I get it. Then you have this side of it. This is the negative side of it, okay? Strong mutations, weak adaptation. Again, death, cancer, disease, chronic illness, aging, and death. Because you have such a major mutation on a weak body, you can't adapt. Those are people who are dealing with mental illness. Those are people who are propagating amazing amounts of fear. Those are people who are in hospice. Those are people who are aging rapidly. Those are people who are in such extreme groups of hate that they are not adapting. And guess what? What's next for them? One day they're going to trigger something. So even though you're not in a hate group or in an extreme group or in a love group, but you're aging on major medications, and you have autoimmunity and all this other stuff, yeah, you are in the weak adaptation, strong mutation. You're basically on your way to hospice. And that's all of who we're dealing with. Okay? So ultimately you want to be in quadrant number 3. But we have quadrant 2 and those that are basically in their little bubbles. And then we have quadrant 3 of where we want to be. And then quadrant 1 and 4 is not the optimal place to be. Okay? You guys have to understand this. So I hope I can reach Mai Huang Nguyen, which I don't imagine she's ever going to respond, but she's been on my Facebook for a while. Okay? And so, those of you who are still stuck in the fear world and you believe in aging and death, hey, you're propagating what you actually are against. It's a little hypocritical to say that you love humanity and you want to save the babies and save humanity, but you're propagating the inability to adapt to your environment. Okay. I mean, I'm going to pick on you guys that are listening, because if I don't see any evidence, or if it's like we all have a duty. We all have a duty to help people adapt to their environment. If you're going to take on an extreme idea, then you better attach Jeju somewhere in the middle. If you're going to listen to me, fine, great. I'm going to see you come through and I'll point you out, because we have a duty to hold each other accountable. Okay? We really do. And so the only evidence that I see is when, I see someone occasionally, I mean, they're not propagating fear. And that's how we determine where people are at, because we don't see anything else but what people put out there. Okay? People say they like the J juice, but how do they exhibit it? Remember, people talk a great game. People do. Not everybody, but I mean, let's see, hold on a second. But give me one second. I'm just check something out real quick. Because if we have the ability to influence people, if we have the ability to do that, then why don't we do it in a way that actually is well balanced? Why don't we do it? What is stopping? Is it the fear? Is it, I mean, I know not everybody wants to be out there. I get it. But I see a lot of people on my Facebook, and I wonder, what are you doing in your world? Now, it's not for me to decide what you should do and how you should, but are you propagating fear? I mean, I'm looking at your Facebook right now, and he's like, the number of confirmed cases for flesh-eating bacteria continues to rise in Virginia. Well, instead of inducing fear, why don't you say, hey, J-juice can help mitigate this. J-juice is the actual lactobacillus, it's a bacteria that will counter the flesh-eating bacteria. What are you doing in your world that's showing people that they don't have to be fearful of your environment? This fruit will make you live 20 years younger. What does that mean? Okay, I mean, you're saying that this fruit is going to make it. How does fruit make? I mean, what is that based upon? Okay, tamarind can treat liver problems. You're still promoting the holistic stuff. Okay, so I mean, that's how I know when people say they like J-juice, but they're not really exemplifying it. And then when I point you out, you get defensive, which I understand because I'm pointing you out. But if you're going to come through and watch my videos, then hopefully I'm going to find a way to reach you and hold you accountable and make you choose left or right. And then say, hey, you say you promote J-juice, but there is no evidence of it. I see nothing of my drink or my or my protocol. You're not exhibiting anything. You're not showing anything. I mean, that's what it comes down to. If it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck. Okay, that's what that's where I get where, like, okay, come on. If you don't believe in J-juice, don't say you do. You have to exemplify it in some way or not induce fear. Okay, so I can appreciate you wanting to be defensive, and I get it because I do occasionally, if I see something come through that I've seen them for a while and they say one thing but do another, I have to point it out. If not, then I would be remiss. I could say I believe in Jesus, and that's fine, but how does that manifest? How do you actually show? When I say when someone says that they love you, how do you prove that love to somebody? Just simply saying something doesn't mean anything. Okay, there has to be substantiation in some way that is measurable. That's what it comes down to, is a specific measurable results. Okay, so anyway, yeah, the 4 quadrants of strong mutation, weak mutation, and adaptation. I mean, that's huge. And I got to add this because I wasn't planning to just do this, but the thing with the propagating just fruit and just tamarind and just spices and just all of these different holistic stuff is really contributing to the imbalances. I mean, if you're from Vietnam, Bridget's from Vietnam. She's trying to help the Vietnamese people understand the J-juice, and she's exemplifying it. We need more Vietnamese people helping their own people, not cause more imbalances. You have a duty, Mai Huong Nguyen. Every single one of you have a duty to understand this information, because we're on now a major crazy death trajectory. We're seeing the vaccine schedule completely double and triple. Now, these specific viruses are not inherently bad, but they are on weak bodies. What are you doing to strengthen your friend's body? Not propagating, tamarind and this type of fruit, not propagating only fruit, but what are you doing to understand the point of J-juice? Okay, that's what it comes down to. If you don't think that my stuff is true and you don't believe in it, then there's no point in watching my stuff. I mean, there really isn't. So I do get kind of tired of people saying one thing and doing another, and I will point it out. Because we all need to have somebody basically hold each other accountable. I get held accountable by my own audience. I will hold myself accountable when I see that I need to. Sometimes I miss, and that's okay. Somebody else will say, okay. But if we don't have people around us holding us accountable, we're going to propagate the wrong stuff. And so I would rather give you an option. And if you still want to go down on that road of living in fear of flesh-eating bacteria, yeah, there's flesh-eating bacteria in Virginia. There's flesh-eating bacteria in Florida. There's viruses all over the world. It's happening in the Dominican Republic. But you don't have to live in fear if you understand the power of JJ. And then what are you doing in your world with the JJ? You can believe in something, but if you're not exemplifying it, then there's no point in even mentioning that you believe in it. If you believe in helping humanity, you won't live in fear and say that the vaccines are horrible, because what's in the vaccine is what you're already exposed to anyways. They're just giving you a little bit of layer protection so that way you don't die from an aggressive disease on a mutated body. Imagine taking somebody who's very weak and putting them into the Amazon, into the Congo, around Ebola. If they didn't have some kind of layer of protection, whether a strong body or some kind of antibody to help protect them, they would fucking die. So unless you are propagating J juice, you're not exactly helping, because you're taking the extreme. Anytime you take an extreme, for and against, love and hate, you're causing an imbalance. Anytime you induce fear, you cause an imbalance in yourself as well as other people. J juice actually levels the playing field. It will not allow you to be afraid of GMO. It will not allow you to be afraid of not having something organic. It won't be having you afraid of the vaccines, of the fluoride, of all the things that are totally, the fear campaigns that are done by News Target, Natural News, InfoWars, as well as all the different conspiracy community. J juice will finally give you some fucking peace, which I know is oxymoronic when I say it, fucking peace, because that's very aggressive. But really, we need to create peace in our world and in our environment. And when you take extremes, love and hate and fear and all this stuff, you're causing and creating more imbalances. We're trying to balance everybody out. And if you don't want to take part in that, then don't pretend to like J juice. Not pretend. I know you say you like it, but I don't see any evidence of it. My Huang Nguyen, I don't. I mean, I'm sorry, I have to be honest. Anyways, that's it. Bye.